The poker table has always been a stage for bold moves and high drama, but some players don't just play the game. They try to rewrite the rules entirely. From secret gadgets and marked decks to schemes so absurd they'd make a Hollywood scriptwriter blush, these pros weren't just pushing their luck. They were rigging the whole damn game. Imagine sitting there, thinking you've been outplayed, only to find out the deck was stacked against you, literally. Today, we're diving into the most jaw-dropping cases of poker pros caught cheating. You'll hear about their sneaky methods, their spectacular downfalls, and one final story so outrageous you'll think it's fiction, except it's all too real. First on our list is the Valeriu Coca WSOP 2015 scandal. The poker world isn't easily shocked, but the $10,000 heads-up event at the World Series of Poker brought a scandal that had even the most seasoned players raising their eyebrows. At the center of it all, Valeriu Coca, a virtually unknown player who seemingly came out of nowhere to crush some of the sharpest minds in the game. His impressive run didn't just turn heads, it sparked accusations of outright cheating. Coca walked away with $54,000 and a cloud of suspicion. Opponents claimed he marked cards with invisible ink and used special sunglasses to read the markings, basically turning poker into a game of infrared solitaire. Big names like Conor Drynan, Pratiusz Budiga, Matt Marafiotti, and Aaron Mermelstein didn't hold back, calling foul on Coca's Cinderella story. But despite the drama and the finger-pointing, WSOP officials never reached a resolution, leaving the poker world to wonder, was this brilliance, luck, or something much darker? Coca dismissed the allegations as baseless, calling them a fantasy. In a statement, he argued that his opponents simply could not believe they were bested fairly. The players who lost are very good, so they just don't believe they could lose to me for an honest reason. I have no way of marking cards or any other tricks. At the time, the WSOP launched an investigation into the scandal, working closely with regulators who relied on forensic analysis to determine whether any foul play had occurred. The process involved examining the playing cards for tampering or evidence of cheating. Despite significant efforts and progress, the investigation remained unresolved for some time, with the forensic lab results causing delays. The accusations center on Coca's alleged use of invisible ink to mark cards, combined with special sunglasses that allowed him to see the markings. The idea is that such a method would give him a decisive advantage, allowing him to identify the values of cards before they were revealed. This suspicion grew after Coca's unexpected victories over well-regarded players, some of whom described his behavior as suspicious. Byron Caverman, one of Coca's opponents in the $10,000 heads-up event, didn't hold back when it came to his suspicions. Caverman claimed he was 100% sure Coca was attempting to cheat, pointing to what he saw as suspicious behavior. According to Caverman, Coca's eyes were laser-focused on the cards as the dealer pitched them, almost as if he were analyzing them for more than just their face value. Conor Drynan and others echoed these concerns, describing Coca's strategy and outcomes as highly unusual, especially considering the caliber of opponents he faced. But the controversy didn't stop at the WSOP. Coca's reputation had already been a topic of conversation in certain poker circles, with reports surfacing that he'd previously been accused of card marking in Czech casinos. This alleged history only added fuel to the fire, as players began to wonder whether his improbable run at the WSOP was more than just a Cinderella story. Despite the mounting allegations, the official investigation didn't deliver the smoking gun many were expecting. Initial forensic tests on the cards used during the tournament found no signs of tampering or foreign substances. In fact, WSOP spokesperson Seth Polanski stated that preliminary testing of the cards showed no markings or use of any foreign solution. For some, this was enough to absolve Coca. For others, it simply meant he might have been more sophisticated in his methods than anyone realized. The poker world, as expected, was sharply divided. Some believed Coca's results were simply the result of skill, luck, or both. After all, improbable things do happen in poker. Others, however, felt the allegations had too much weight to be ignored, particularly given Coca's alleged past incidents. The case also highlighted a growing concern about the need for stricter measures to ensure the integrity of high-stakes poker. Players called for enhanced security protocols, better training for dealers, and more rigorous oversight during major events to prevent situations like this from arising again. Ultimately, the investigation into Coca's actions at the 2015 WSOP concluded with no formal charges or penalties. While his $54,000 prize money had initially been withheld during the investigation, it was eventually released when no definitive proof of wrongdoing was found. Coca was officially cleared of all allegations and the case was closed. Yet the controversy left a lingering question in the minds of many poker fans and players. Was Coca simply misunderstood, or did he manage to pull off one of the most sophisticated hustles in WSOP history? Next is the José Macedo fake poker prodigy. The poker world loves nothing more than a prodigy, a young phenom who seemingly rises from nowhere to crush the game and rewrite the rules. Think of legends like Tom Dwan or Vladimir Korzunin, who turned humble beginnings into poker greatness. So when whispers started spreading in late 2010 about a Portuguese teenager dominating high-stakes online poker, the community took notice. By 2011, the name José Macedo was everywhere, and his story seemed almost too good to be true. Spoiler, it was. Macedo's legend was born on the 2+2 poker forums, where he spun a tale that felt tailor-made for poker folklore. He claimed to have started at the very bottom, grinding away at 1 cent, 2 cent tables, logging countless hours, and clawing his way to the higher stakes. Accompanying screenshots supposedly showing over $1.6 million in profits across stakes ranging from 3-6 to 50-100 no limit were all the proof the poker world needed. Despite keeping his screen names a secret, Macedo's charisma and story captivated the community. It wasn't just random players who bought into the hype. Macedo earned backing from big names like Jungle Man and Dogger's Head Qureshi, cementing his status as the next big thing. Soon enough, sponsorship deals came knocking. Macedo signed with Lock Poker and Poker Strategy, with many hailing him as the future of the game. He was young, talented, and had the kind of success story that inspired dreamers across the poker landscape. But, as it turned out, his rise wasn't built on hard work alone. It was built on deception. What the poker world didn't know was that behind the screenshots and carefully crafted narrative, something much darker was brewing. José Macedo wasn't the rags to riches poker prodigy he claimed to be. He was about to become the central figure in one of poker's most shocking scandals. But, as always, the poker world doesn't just blindly buy into fairy tales. Skeptics on the 2+2 forums began poking holes in Macedo's story, noticing inconsistencies that didn't sit right. The doubt snowballed when Macedo started hosting Skype strategy sessions with high-stakes players. He hyped up a supposed whale, a terrible gambler who, according to Macedo, was basically handing out free money at the tables. Yet, mysteriously, even the most skilled professionals kept losing to this so-called whale, a terrible player who never lost. Yeah, that raised some eyebrows. One such victim, a player known as Moss Boss, found himself down over $21,000 after playing against the whale, who went by the username Sauron1989. But instead of accepting his losses, Moss Boss started digging. It didn't take long for him to spot something fishy. He noticed that Macedo and this mysterious whale would disconnect from Skype at the exact same time during games. Coincidence? Probably not. When the pieces finally came together, Macedo's carefully crafted image fell apart. Faced with mounting evidence, he confessed in a 2+2 forum post. The truth was even worse than anyone imagined. Macedo admitted to orchestrating the games, using Skype to view his friends' hole cards, and passing that information to a third party, likely himself. The whale wasn't a generous fish, it was a rigged operation designed to fleece trusting players. The poker community was stunned. The prodigy who had inspired a wave of admiration and excitement turned out to be a fraud. He didn't just cheat the game, he betrayed the friends and backers who believed in him. It was the ultimate act of treachery, and it left a permanent stain on the story of José Macedo, the Portuguese prodigy who played his biggest bluff on those closest to him. As you'd expect, the fallout was brutal. Macedo was absolutely torn to shreds by the poker community. His sponsorship with Lock Poker vanished overnight, and whatever was left of his reputation crumbled to dust. Jungleman and Qureshi, the pros who had vouched for him, didn't walk away unscathed either. They claimed that they'd been blindsided by the whole ordeal, but their close ties to Macedo made them targets of suspicion. Promising to make things right, they pledged to compensate the victims, though the specifics were conveniently swept under the rug. Macedo, meanwhile, vanished from the poker world entirely. His meteoric rise, undone by greed and deception, ended in a spectacular nosedive. But, as if plucked straight from the "where are they now?" files, reports emerged in 2014 that Macedo had started a cleaning service agency in the UK, employing students from the University of Lancaster. A surprising pivot, to say the least. It seemed he was rebuilding his life far away from the green felt. But let's be honest, no amount of cleaning products could scrub away the stain he left on his name: the Bugata counterfeit chip scandal. In a story straight out of a crime thriller, Christian Lusardi, a 43-year-old poker player from Fayetteville, North Carolina, orchestrated one of the most audacious and bizarre schemes in casino history. His ill-fated attempt to cheat his way to riches during the Borgata's prestigious Winter Poker Open in January 2014 ended in criminal charges, financial ruin, and a 5-year prison sentence. The unraveling of Lusardi's scheme began on January 16, 2014, when guests at Harrah's Casino Hotel in Atlantic City complained of a leak in the sewer lines of 2 adjoining hotel rooms. Maintenance staff traced the source of the problem to an unusual obstruction: hundreds of poker chips bearing the Bugata's logo. A total of 494 grey $5,000 chips and 9 mustard $25,000 chips with a face value of $2.7 million were retrieved from the plumbing. Bugata staff quickly determined the chips were counterfeit, their authenticity undermined by the stickers affixed to mimic the Bugata's trademark. Just days earlier, Lusardi had entered the Winter Poker Open, an event designed to span 3 weeks with millions of dollars at stake. By the time the counterfeit chips were discovered, $800,000 worth of fake chips had already been put into play during the tournament's first 2 days. The scheme was so disruptive that the tournament, which began on January 14th, was abruptly cancelled by January 18th. An investigation by the New Jersey State Police and the Division of Criminal Justice revealed the full scope of Lusardi's plot. Lusardi had ordered the counterfeit poker chips from a manufacturer in China and added counterfeit Bugata logos himself. He then smuggled the chips into the tournament, injecting them into the game in hopes of overwhelming legitimate competitors. However, as suspicions arose and the scheme began to unravel, Lusardi made the clumsy decision to dispose of the remaining chips by flushing them down his hotel room toilet. The fallout from the scam was immense. The clogged plumbing at Harrah's caused extensive damage, leading to a repair bill of $9,455. Meanwhile, the Bugata faced significant financial losses, including $463,540 in lost tournament revenues. The New Jersey Division of Gaming Enforcement ordered the cancellation of the tournament and later oversaw the fair distribution of remaining prize funds and entry fee refunds. Lusardi's actions attracted sharp criticism from law enforcement and gaming officials alike. Acting Attorney General John Hoffman described the scheme as a bungled attempt that, while comical in its absurdity, constituted serious crimes. Lusardi's charges included second-degree trademark counterfeiting and third-degree criminal mischief, to which he pleaded guilty. On January 24, 2014, just days after his ill-conceived plan came to light, Lusardi was arrested at another hotel in Atlantic City. Deputy Attorneys General Kerry DiGiuseppe and Yvonne Marr, along with investigators from the New Jersey State Police Casino Investigations Unit, spearheaded the prosecution. Colonel Rick Fuentes of the State Police emphasized the deterrent effect of Lusardi's 5-year prison sentence and substantial restitution, stating, "Lusardi was playing with dirty money long before he flushed those chips down the toilet." Ultimately, the counterfeit chips found during the investigation totaled a staggering $3.6 million in face value, including additional chips discovered in a clogged Bogota restroom on January 18th. Lusardi's gambit disrupted a major professional poker tournament, damaged the reputation of the Bugata, and highlighted the lengths to which some criminals will go to exploit the high-stakes world of casino gaming. This incident underscores the vigilance required in the casino industry to combat counterfeiting and other forms of fraud. As Director Elie Honig of the Division of Criminal Justice noted, casinos are frequent targets for criminal schemes due to the large sums of money changing hands daily. The swift response by law enforcement and gaming regulators ensured justice was served, preserving the integrity of Atlantic City's gaming industry. For Christian Lusardi, what began as a calculated attempt to manipulate the odds ended in a humiliating failure. This next story is wild, involving drugging players in a shamanic ritual. This story revolves around Bryn Kenny. The all-time money leader wasn't just accused of bending the rules. Martin Zamani claimed he was the mastermind behind an elaborate online cheating empire on GG Poker. The allegations were staggering: collusion in satellites, ghosting, and real-time assistant software. But that was only the beginning. Zamani didn't stop at the gameplay accusations. He painted Kenny as a controlling, eccentric figure who demanded total obedience from his stable of players. The rumors swirled that Kenny micromanaged everything from strategy to lifestyle choices, even reprimanding a player for eating Taco Bell. And then there was the shaman incident, a story so bizarre it barely felt real. In an interview with Doug Polk, Zamani revealed how Kenny sent him to a shaman for a cleansing ritual. Zamani described meeting the shaman, who introduced herself with an unforgettable line: "I was the warlord's wife. I'm a killer, a thief, a liar, but I tell you these things straight to your face." Then came the ritual, something Zamani described as violent. Zamani explained the experience as: "She takes incense, burns your skin until it blisters, then cuts the blisters open with a knife. After that, she puts frog poison on the wounds. It's called Kambo. It's supposed to cleanse you. I mean, I don't know about you, but if that helps me hit the nuts, I'm all game." Kenny didn't shy away from the controversy. On April 26, he appeared in a Poker News interview with Sarah Herring to deny the accusations. Kenny dismissed Zamani as unreliable, calling him a person who's never really been happy in his life. But instead of clearing the air, Kenny's vague and deflective answers only deepened the skepticism. Fans and pros alike were left with more questions than answers. Then, things got worse. Poker News obtained verified Telegram messages between Kenny and one of his players, George Wolf. These messages seemed to confirm that Kenny not only knew about ghosting and multi-accounting, but had actively encouraged it. Months later, Kenny tried to repair his image during an appearance on Joey Ingram's Poker Life podcast. But just like before, his evasive answers only fanned the flames. The poker community wasn't buying it, and Kenny's reputation continued to unravel as one of the most scandalous stories in poker history. Now we have a normal type of cheating scandal, the Hialeah Park poker tournament controversy. The poker room at Hialeah Park Casino in Miami, Florida, has become the epicenter of controversy following allegations of questionable practices during a $250 buy-in MTT with a $200,000 guaranteed prize pool. For Florida's poker community, what should have been a celebratory 2-year anniversary tournament turned into a hotbed of suspicion as discrepancies in numbers left players demanding answers. From the start, something felt off. The tournament, held over 5 days with multiple flights, was billed as the largest in Hialeah Park's brief history, but players were quick to notice irregularities. Unlike standard practice, buy-ins and rebuys weren't processed at the casino cage but at the podium. Even more unusual, the structure sheet, which outlines critical tournament details, was not readily available to participants. The unease grew as Day 2 commenced. Players discovered glaring inconsistencies between the prize pool figures and the number of chips in play, as displayed on the tournament clocks. Bob Bernstein, a poker enthusiast and user on the forum site 2plus2, was one of the first to publicly raise concerns. The Day 2 chip counts posted in the poker room on Sunday claimed the prize pool was $215,002 with 163 players returning and payouts for the top 90. However, the total number of entries fluctuated wildly. Initially, staff said there were 1,061 entries, then later revised it to 966. Neither number matched the posted prize pool or the payouts, which suggested a field of 1,125 entries. Things took an even darker turn when players began scrutinizing the total number of chips in play. The tournament clocks displayed a figure of around 26 million in chips, but the Day 2 chip count list added up to about 27 million, a discrepancy of nearly 700,000 chips when calculated. This gap raised eyebrows and led to serious questions about the integrity of the tournament. What could explain such a glaring mismatch? Why wasn't this addressed or clarified by management? The South Florida Poker Players Association launched a summary investigation, interviewing local players as well as current and former Hialeah Park employees. Their findings pointed to potentially serious allegations. The casino may have been underlaying players, meaning they could have manipulated entry figures or chip counts to pocket a portion of the prize pool. While these claims remain unproven, they provide a plausible explanation for the inconsistencies. Coupled with the casino's lack of transparency, such as not providing an official payout structure or concrete entry numbers, The poker room's management now faces significant scrutiny. The situation at Hialeah Park Casino has cast a shadow over its reputation, with many players taking to forums and social media to air their frustrations. For a poker room to succeed, trust is paramount. The lack of clear communication and the unsettling anomalies in this tournament have left players questioning whether Hialeah Park is a place they can rely on for fair play. With the ball now squarely in the casino's court, players are waiting for management to address these concerns. Transparency and accountability will be essential if Hialeah Park hopes to salvage its reputation and regain the trust of South Florida's poker community. Until then, the controversy lingers, and the question remains, what really happened at the tables of Hialeah Park? Okay, now, for a stream that never has any controversy, Hustler Casino Live. High-stakes players Nick Airball and Wesley Fay accused fellow player Tony Mars of orchestrating a multi-million-dollar cheating operation in private poker games across Yorba Linda and other exclusive locations. Airball ignited the firestorm on December 3rd, taking to Twitter with a shocking claim someone he once considered a close friend had cheated him out of $1 million. In a follow-up tweet, Nick didn't hold back, naming Mars as the mastermind. According to Nick, Mars brought in a mechanic dealer, along with a special deck of cards that could only be deciphered using invisible ink and unique contacts. Wesley backed up the story with even more jaw-dropping details. He alleged that Mars brought 2 accomplices into the games, players who conveniently walked away with millions. Mars himself reportedly pocketed a cool $1.6 million. Suspicion reached a boiling point when Wesley and others inspected one of the decks Mars had introduced. What they found was straight out of a spy thriller. Under a blue light in a dark room, hidden markings on the backs of the cards became visible. Wesley confronted Mars directly, and the tension only escalated. According to Wesley, Mars eventually admitted the deck was marked when presented with the evidence, though Mars later denied this. Instead, Mars deflected, claiming Wesley was simply trying to dodge his losses by shifting the blame. "If we're cheating," Mars said, "how can we lose?" But the rabbit hole went deeper. Wesley alleged that Mars wasn't working alone. He named French pro Arnaud Maton, who allegedly dealt under the alias Mike, and a convicted felon from Pennsylvania known as Bruce, as part of Mars' supposed ring. Both denied any involvement, with Maton taking to the 2+2 forums to clear his name. Mars, on the other hand, fired back with a public statement, vehemently denying the accusations. "I didn't bring any cards anywhere," he wrote, describing the allegations as baseless attacks that damaged his reputation. He accused Wesley of being close to broke and fabricating stories to maintain a certain image. Yet, despite his denials, the controversy refused to die down. The story took an even darker turn when a phone call between Wesley and Mars surfaced. In the tense exchange, Mars allegedly made threats of violence, including references to bloodshed and harm to Wesley's family. The recording added another layer of drama to an already explosive scandal. With marked decks, mechanic dealers, and threats of violence, the California private game cheating allegations have become one of the most talked about poker scandals in recent memory. I might have to get some of this ink for my home games. Our last cheating scandal was the missing piece to make Casino Royale bearable: miniaturized pinhole cameras, international crime rings, and high-stakes games infiltrated by sophisticated cheats. The details came to light after 2 gamblers were caught red-handed at France's Enghien-les-Bains casino. These 2 cheaters reportedly used hidden pinhole cameras to capture images of cards as they were dealt, giving them an unfair advantage. In just one night, they reportedly pocketed $200,000 before being detained by authorities. But here's where it gets even more sinister. Investigators suspect these 2 weren't acting alone. They're believed to be part of a massive international cheating ring that has allegedly wreaked havoc on poker games around the globe. According to reports, this ring didn't just stop at the occasional casino score. They allegedly infiltrated some of the highest stakes poker games, leveraging their advanced tech to clean out even the sharpest players. And let's not forget their audacity. They didn't just show up and hope for the best. They brought marked decks, recruited accomplices to pose as players, and posed as whales, splashing chips around to sell the illusion of unpredictability. But here's the kicker. No matter how wild their plays looked early in a hand, these whales almost never lost at showdown. Coincidence? Hardly. The scandal set off a wave of debate across the poker community. Some couldn't help but connect this to other high-profile incidents. The infamous Jack 4, hand on Hustler Casino Live, Landon Tice's alleged cheating experience in Houston, and even whispers of foul play at major events like the WSOP. Suddenly, it all seemed a little too coincidental. As more details emerged, the scope of the alleged cheating operation became even more staggering. High-stakes games across Europe, the US, and Asia were reportedly targeted, from Bahamas events to private cash games in Texas, from Pennsylvania to Korea. No region seemed immune. But the biggest question remained, how do you stop something like this? Some proposed using a Euro pitch technique, where cards are dealt face down from a blackjack-style shoe to neutralize the threat of low-angle cameras. It's a clever solution, but not without its drawbacks. Training dealers and slowing down games aren't exactly appealing to players who value efficiency at the table. Others suggested banning smart devices altogether, particularly those placed suspiciously close to the action. While this might help in theory, the reality is far messier. In today's game, where players rely on their phones for everything from tracking hands to checking sports scores, such a ban could end up alienating honest players more than deterring cheaters. The real frustration, however, came from the lack of meaningful consequences for the cheaters themselves. Outside of rare cases like the arrest in France, regulators tend to turn a blind eye unless the casino is the one being cheated. For players, it often feels like justice is just out of reach, like losing to someone holding an unbeatable hand, but you didn't even get to see the cards. Despite all this, poker continues to thrive. I can't imagine the grinders at my local casino have the brain cells for such elaborate schemes, and if they do, fair play to them. Cheating may offer a fleeting moment of advantage, but in the world of poker, where integrity and skill reign supreme, the cost of dishonesty far outweighs the reward. So, there you have it. Another chapter in the never-ending saga of people thinking they can outsmart the poker world. It's almost poetic, really. Trying to cheat in a game where the average player probably has a PhD in probability, a master's in psychology, and a side hustle reading people like a Kindle. Newsflash, you're going to get caught. The house of cards always falls, and when it does, it's usually in spectacular fashion. Speaking of getting caught, some cheaters don't just lose their chips, they lose their freedom. Up next, we have Bryan Micon, the operator of the Bitcoin poker site Seals with Clubs. Bryan Micon, the self-proclaimed chairman of the Bitcoin poker site Seals with Clubs, found himself thrust into the spotlight, not for his poker prowess, but for spearheading one of the most controversial intersections of cryptocurrency and online gaming. Facing the looming threat of up to 10 years in prison, Mikon opted to fold his hand early, pleading guilty to operating an unlicensed interactive gaming system in Nevada. His attorney, Richard Schonfeld, spun it as an appropriate resolution, reducing the charge to a gross misdemeanor. In exchange, Mikon got probation, a $25,000 fine, and had to forfeit assets, including bitcoins and computers seized during a police raid. Not exactly a winning pot. The saga began in February 2015, when Nevada authorities raided Mikon's Las Vegas home, turning his quiet life into a legal circus. The investigation had been sparked by a report from a Belgian national who flagged Seals with Clubs to Nevada's Gaming Control Board. The claim? That the site was operating in direct violation of Nevada's strict online gaming laws. What authorities found didn't help Mikon's case. Between Skype chats and gameplay logs, it became clear that SWC wasn't just a niche platform. It was reportedly generating $10,000 to $12,000 in monthly profits. Mikon, of course, argued for the site's legitimacy, framing it as a haven for Bitcoin and poker enthusiasts alike. But Nevada wasn't buying it. For the state, this wasn't about poker players enjoying their favorite game in digital form. It was about someone playing fast and loose with gaming regulations. Mikon may have been at the cutting edge of the Bitcoin movement, but to Nevada, he was just another operator breaking the law. Undeterred by the dramatic raid on his Las Vegas home, Bryan Micon packed his bags and fled to Antigua, where he seemed determined to escape the long arm of Nevada law. But his defiance was short-lived. Just months later, Mikon returned to the US to face the charges against him. As part of his plea deal, he avoided the harsher penalties of a felony conviction but admitted to operating the unlicensed site. Though he managed to sidestep serious jail time, Mikon couldn't hide his frustration. He publicly criticized what he called the excessive use of force during the raid, painting himself as a victim of regulatory overreach and a defender of personal freedom. Proving he wasn't one to fold under pressure, Mikon relaunched his vision just weeks after the raid. On March 1st, 2015, Seals with Clubs 2.0 was born, a Bitcoin-exclusive poker platform that he pushed forward even without the support of his original partners. "There are very few things in this world that motivate me," Micon said, listing family, poker, and Bitcoin as his driving forces. His tenacity and passion turned him into a polarizing figure, equal parts pioneer and provocateur. Micon's story shines a spotlight on the ongoing collision between cutting-edge technologies and old-school regulatory frameworks. While some see him as a visionary who embraced innovation in its purest form, others are more conservative, highlighting the consequences of operating in the legal grey zones of modern tech. Either way, Micon's saga is a fascinating chapter in the evolution of cryptocurrency and its role in reshaping industries, including poker. Curious about the poker pros who ended up trading their tailored suits for prison jumpsuits? Check out this video on poker players rotting in jail. Spoiler, they didn't bluff their way out of those sentences. Click here to watch, because if you think these scandals are wild, wait until you hear about those stories.